Billionaire finds his maid sleeping on a bench with his baby. What happens next will shock you. The city was still asleep. But Adrian Cole, one of its richest men, was wide awake. He stood by the giant glass window of his mansion, staring at the fading night sky. He had everything: wealth, status, power. But peace had long left his heart. His life was a routine of numbers, contracts, and empty applause. That morning felt different, heavy, silent. Adrian walked out into the courtyard to clear his head. The marble floors echoed beneath his bare feet. The air was cold, the kind that carried memories you tried to forget. Then he saw it. By the garden bench, under the pale light of dawn, someone was there. A figure wrapped in a faded shawl, still as stone. He took a step closer, then froze. It was his maid, Elena, asleep on the bench, and in her arms his baby girl. The child's tiny head rested on Elena's chest, her small fingers gripping the woman's dress. The shawl covered them both, shielding them from the morning chill. Adrian's heartbeat thundered in his chest. Why was his baby outside? Was something wrong? Was this neglect? Or something far worse? He approached quietly, afraid to wake them, afraid of what he might find. Then the baby stirred, stretched, and smiled. A soft, peaceful smile. And in that smile, Adrian saw something he hadn't seen in years. Love. Pure, simple, unguarded love. He stood there, frozen. For once, the billionaire had no words. Elena had worked in his house for nearly 2 years. Quiet, humble, invisible to most. She spoke only when spoken to, moved softly, and never complained. But that night had been bitterly cold. The heater in the nursery had broken down. The baby had cried endlessly, small sobs that could shatter any heart. Elena had called the technician. No one came. Adrian had been away at a charity gala, raising millions, drinking champagne, smiling for the cameras, unaware that the real act of charity was happening right in his own home. So Elena did what her heart told her. She took the baby into her arms, wrapped her in her old shawl, and stepped outside. She rocked her under the stars, humming lullabies in a language Adrian didn't understand. The night was cold, but the baby's cries softened. The shawl wasn't warm enough, but love was. At some point, exhaustion took over. Elena didn't mean to sleep. She just meant to rest her eyes for a moment. That moment became hours. Now, as the sun rose, Adrian stood before her, torn between anger and awe. He whispered her name. Elena. Her eyes opened instantly. She gasped, clutching the baby tighter. Sir, I'm sorry, she stammered. She wouldn't stop crying. The room was too cold. I just wanted to. Her words broke before the tears did. Adrian looked at the child, then at the woman holding her. The baby was safe, warm, smiling. He swallowed hard. You could have frozen to death, he said softly. Elena's lips trembled, but she smiled weakly. As long as she's safe, sir, she whispered. That single line hit deeper than any truth he'd ever heard. And for the first time in years, Adrian Cole, billionaire, tycoon, control freak, felt small. Later that morning, he called her into his office. The room that once smelled of power now felt heavy with guilt. Sit, he said gently. She hesitated, confused, but obeyed. He looked at her, really looked at her. The wrinkles near her eyes, the tired hands, the faded uniform. Elena, he said, why did you risk your life for my child? Her eyes filled with tears. Because I know what it feels like to lose one, she whispered. He frowned. You lost a child? She nodded slowly. Years ago, she had a little girl. She was sick. They couldn't afford the medicine. Elena worked day and night, begged for help, but it came too late. Her baby died in her arms. Since then, she had carried that pain quietly, like a scar no one could see. So when your daughter cries, she said, voice trembling, it feels like my own child calling out again. When I hold her, I get to love again. I get to heal. Silence filled the room. Even the air seemed to pause. Adrian looked down, unable to speak. He had spent his life chasing success, thinking love was something you could buy. But this woman, who had nothing, had just taught him more about love than all his years of wealth combined. That evening he gathered everyone, his wife, his mother, his sister, the staff. They thought he was going to fire Elena, but when she entered the room holding the baby, he stood. "This woman," he said, "saved my daughter's life." Gasps filled the hall. "She slept in the cold so my child could sleep in warmth," he continued, his voice breaking. "She gave my daughter love I didn't even know she needed." Everyone was silent. Then, in front of them all, Adrian did something no one had ever seen him do. He knelt before her. "I failed to see your heart," he said softly. "But today, I finally understand what real love looks like." He told her she would never sleep outside again. She would have her own room inside the mansion, near the nursery. No more servant quarters. No more invisibility. She cried, not out of pride, but relief. The staff whispered in disbelief. And from that day on, the mansion began to change. Weeks passed. Adrian noticed the small things. The way Elena hummed as she folded clothes. How his daughter laughed more whenever she was near. He saw warmth return to his home. Laughter filled rooms that had once been silent. One morning, Adrian walked into the kitchen with a small box. He handed it to her. Inside was a gold necklace, a small heart pendant. "For the woman who kept mine beating," he said quietly. Elena tried to refuse. "I don't need gifts, sir." He smiled. "You taught me that love isn't bought. It's given. Please, let me give this from my heart." She accepted it, tears glistening in her eyes. But life always tests what it teaches. One night, a storm hit the city. Thunder shook the mansion. The baby fell ill, high fever, shallow breaths. Adrian called every doctor he knew. Machines, medicine, panic. Nothing worked. Elena entered the room quietly, her face pale but calm. "Let me hold her," she said. No one argued. She took the child in her arms, rocking gently. She hummed the same old lullaby she once sang to her lost daughter. Her voice trembled with tears. "Please, God," she whispered. "Not this one. Don't take this one too." Adrian stood in the corner, helpless, watching faith battle fear. Minutes crawled by. Then the baby stirred. A soft sound. Her breathing steadied. The doctor's mouth fell open. "She's okay," he whispered. Adrian collapsed to his knees, covering his face, crying like a child. He knew what had happened. It wasn't science. It was love. Fierce, selfless, and alive. Days later, when everything had calmed, Elena tried to leave. She packed her bag before dawn, tears in her eyes. She left a note on the kitchen table. "Thank you for everything." But before she reached the gate, a voice called out, "Elena." She turned. Adrian stood there, holding his daughter. "Leaving without saying goodbye?" he asked gently. "I don't belong here, sir," she said, trembling. "People talk." He walked closer, placed the baby in her arms. "You belong where love belongs," he said softly. "And that's here." Tears streamed down her face. "You're not her maid anymore," he said. "You're her guardian." The baby giggled, reaching for Elena's face. And at that moment, the gates of the mansion stayed open, but Elena's heart finally closed them forever. She wasn't running anymore. She was home. Seasons changed. The little girl grew, walking, laughing, shining. And wherever she went, Elena followed. Adrian grew older too, wiser, softer. His house no longer echoed with silence. It breathed with life, with warmth. The girl began calling her Mama Elena, and everyone smiled when they heard it, even Adrian. Years passed. The walls of that mansion held thousands of moments. Laughter, tears, memories of love reborn. And in every photograph on those walls, there was one constant, Elena's gentle smile. People often asked Adrian how he changed. He'd smile and say, "Because one woman loved my child more than I loved myself." He'd walk to the garden and point at the old bench, still standing under the same tree. "That's where I learned what real wealth means," he'd whisper. "It's not in money. It's in hearts that love without asking for anything in return." Even long after Elena was gone, her spirit stayed. In every laugh, in every sunrise, in every heartbeat of that home. And Adrian never forgot. She didn't work for me, he'd say quietly. She worked for love, because one act of compassion can rewrite a lifetime of pride. And one humble maid can teach a billionaire how to be human again. Would you forgive someone like Elena? If this story touched your heart, tell me in the comments. What would you have done in Adrian's place?